Welcome to the Navbar. It is another week. We have been away for a couple of weeks. I have had
We
a
have.
busy couple of weeks with launch week, which we can get into in a moment. Simon, what have you been up to?
Oh, yesterday or 2 days ago, I've launched my first Laracast course. React from scratch, beginner friendly, starts from the absolute basics, goes to not really advanced, but like fringe of like, oh, here is now where you need to reach for something like React Query or 10 Stack or Next.js or some sort of stuff that gives you routing and fetching and cache invalidation and all that stuff. So if you are a beginner in React, it's a pretty good series. It involves a lot of puppies, which are actual dev puppies. I've asked Twitter for devs to send me the photos of dogs, and I've included them in the course. So
That's
it's
so cool.
yeah,
Such a good idea.
React and puppies.
Getting people involved in the course creation. That's
I
awesome.
thought so. Yeah, get them to feel part of the thing, and then for me as well, recording the stuff and looking at puppies all day is much better than a to-do app.
Nice. So, just as a quick overview, like why would you need to use React and Laravel? What problems do they each solve?
Great question. Well, Laravel is a full stack framework, and traditionally it provided its own templating language, which is called Blade templates. But Laravel and the team behind Laravel is very open to the world of web. They've been in sync with what's happening, and so they've provided the ability to use any framework that you want on the front end, and then use Laravel as just an API, or use a tool called Inertia, which lets you build like a traditional MVC monolith app, but use React or Vue or Svelte on the front end. So there's a lot of devs who now are willing to try React because it pairs really, really well with Laravel, especially with Inertia in the middle. And more products from the core Laravel team, like Laravel Cloud and Nightwatch, are using that stack of React, Inertia, and Laravel. So I think there was a great demand for the Laracast audience to learn React, and so that course kind of comes in there.
Yeah, very cool. That's awesome. So, yeah, does the course get to the inertia stuff?
So the last lesson, literally the last lesson of the course is called Where From There, and it's called React is a library, not a framework. And it's because in the last few lessons of the course, we start doing data fetching and say, there's not really a mechanism in React for that. You can use effect or the new use function, but there's even the docs say, hey, you should use a library to help you with that because we don't provide anything. And so I do a few lessons on these edge cases where you've reached the okay, now do whatever you have to by yourself of React. And so I show the landscape, like I talk about Next.js, Remix, 10 Stack Start, and then I showcase the same app, but built with React in Inertia, and I show how it simplifies a whole lot of cause issues and hitting an API and have duplicated routes on both sides, and then it's much simplified. So I kind of tease and demo this React inertia approach. And then I'd like to, there's already a few people say, oh, you should do the same course, but with inertia, or continue the course and porting what we've done to inertia. So I'm thinking of what to do next in that regard.
That's exactly what I was teeing up. Is I think there should be a follow-on course going deep into inertia and what that the superpowers that gives you.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I would be
I
super
did I
keen to
did
learn that.
ask the community what you want to learn next, and a lot of people said that, but like the thing you tease at the end, like go on with this. I don't know if I want to make courses that sort of kind of piggyback and require you to watch another course before, because then someone might be like, oh, I got to do a 4 hour course before I can do this one.
Hmm.
But I want to try to make a way where it hints at the other course, but it's decoupled, so you don't have to do the other one to.
Hmm.
Like if someone's already fluent with React, but they want to learn inertia, that they don't have to watch the whole beginner stuff.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah,
Maybe you could do like a one, like the first lesson is like a summary of some of the important parts that you need to know from the first
that's a good
course, kind
idea.
of like a speed run of the important bits, and then just kind of point back to if you want to go deeper on this,
Yeah,
go
I
check out
like
that.
that. And to be honest, one of the hardest parts for me is to come up with the visual example and the storyline and stuff. And so having that app built, recycling that into different courses is kind of cool. If
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
want everything to become the puppy dev pops app, but it'll be a shame to build this and now okay now for the next course I have to invent a whole new world and design and build the app and try stuff and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All the time consuming bits, all of the overhead of what
Mm.
goes into creating content. And yeah, it's nice, like even at a smaller level, like it's so time consuming doing that if you're just like releasing one YouTube video. Like it's nice focusing on a course like you have. At least you only need to build like one app to be able to break it down into a bunch of lessons, and you can keep kind of focusing on this one
Yep.
example.
It's yeah, really interesting topic that we can probably dive a bit deeper into. There's always that, do I have one example that kind of streamlines the whole course, or is each lesson an individual stuff, egghead style, where it's completely independent and you don't need to have a thread? And when I started this course, I was like 100% on I want every lesson to be a little slice of knowledge about React and it's completely independent. And so here's how state works and here's how use effect and whatever. And then I was like, oh, now every lesson I have to invent a world and a design and a story.
For sure.
And then I ended up just learning stuff to just trying to build something. And then I thought, oh, I could take it further and then have a filtering. And then I realized, actually, a whole app makes more sense and it might carry the learner through the journey. So I still haven't decided which is the best approach. They both have pros and cons, and I keep flip flopping between the two.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Uh, I think like with a course, I think it's nice that uh I mean from like taking a course, I think I like building on the same kind of example because anytime you introduce a new idea, you've got to kind of like spend some time talking about what it is. Like if one in one example you're building like a to-do app, and then the next example you're building like an Instagram clone. Like if you pick those like things that people have shared context on, then you don't need to spend too long on it. But if you're trying to solve like a specific problem, like okay, we now have this like very specific like caching issue or performance issue, you've got to kind of explain how you got there and how give some context as to why people might want to reach for this solution. And so I feel like if you're building on top of an app that the viewer or the person doing the course has uh, already has the context of what the app is, then you don't need to kind of introduce that as a new idea as well each time. And so I feel like yeah, there isn't really one right answer because also you don't want to just keep building out something that like you don't want it to become monotonous and boring that you're focusing on this one thing
Yep.
when you don't necessarily have to, but you also don't want to introduce a whole bunch of like new stuff that you need to cover as context for what the lesson is about.
Yep. Another interesting point on that course that I've done is there's a lot of, I wanted it to look great and be fun and like pleasing to look at. And I was like, the last thing I want is it to become a styling course and nerd out on Tailwind, and then each lesson gets way longer because we have to build the whole UI. So I've made the choice of I do a very basic intro to React and JSX where we don't build anything first. And then I'm like, all right, now we're going to build this app. And we start with the whole HTML and CSS already scaffolded as a static template. And then we move this into React World. So we break it into components and start adding some interactivity and stuff. And I was really scared that the course is React from scratch. And we're like, all right, so you do 3 circles and then bam, the whole owl is drawn because I've just jumped forward to the whole app is there. But I think it works really well. It worked really well because everyone said, oh, I love how you introduce concept and then you bring like chunks of HTML and then we actually talk about React looking at these instead of typing them and building the whole thing.
Hmm.
So if you look at the course, it's like CLI stuff and hello world and no styling. And then the next video, suddenly you have a whole app built and you're like, whoa, what happened? And I was a bit scared that people would be like, skipped a few. But basically from the point where the app is here, it becomes progressively, we go into the header component and then the search filtering and stuff, and we add the reactification of that bit of UI. So I think it worked pretty well. and
Yeah.
it fast forwards the storytelling without punting on what you're actually trying to teach.
Yeah, I think Kenzie Dodds does a really, really good job of that with obviously running so many live workshops and things. I think he's developed a really good strategy of like building out a complex enough app to be interesting and kind of leaving to dos throughout that are like focusing in on the problem and the thing that you want to solve. And so you still get that like continuous context of like you already know what the app is and what the app is trying to solve, but you like it's not as basic as starting from just an empty application where it takes a long time to build up to something that's actually doing something. That can be boring, but it's also yeah, like it's a nice balance of tackling complex problems in like a complex enough application, but without overwhelming the user of just like dumping a whole bunch of new context every single lesson. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I think he does a really good job of that.
Yeah. If I have to give myself a self grade and assessment, I think I'm a really good teacher and I connect with the audience, and the comments on this course is exactly what comes back to me. But I always struggle to find the idea and the example and the frame of the course. So I'm going to ask you, do you have any tips when it comes to you want to teach something, like how you break down from a blank canvas, how you want to approach it, and how to source the topic and the scope of each lesson? You have years of experience doing this. So do I, but I still struggle with it. So maybe
Yeah,
you can help me.
I think I definitely still struggle as well. You put me on the spot to try and think of like reasonable, repeatable ways that I do this, because it also is usually just like this scatter approach of just trying to pull it all together at the last minute. I think that generally, like, I have a list of like of ideas and things that I want to cover. There is also like usually lots of new things coming out from Supabase
Mhm.
that I need to cover, and so I think there's generally a list of things that I want to go through, or there's a list of the content, but I think a big part of it is prioritizing the content and trying to work out what would be worth covering over other things, because there's just like an endless list of things that I could cover. Um, and so I think part of it, I try and weigh up the value of the thing that I'm going to build. So like like why am I building a tutorial for this thing? Is it because there is not enough resources for this and we're just
Mhm.
trying to highlight something that people don't really know about? Um, versus like, is this something that has recently had a big change and we need to like change the way people are thinking about it, or introduce this new like API or this new way of doing something? I try and weigh up that side of it with, is there like a compelling, interesting way that I can tell this? Because I think I'm sort of over the last few months, I've been trying to move away from just creating a video to create a video, and trying to look at um, making it a little bit more interesting and engaging. And one way that I've been doing that is like introducing a little bit of story into it. And so trying to, um, we'll talk about this in a future episode if we. If I can motivate Simon to record a second episode after this one, we'll see how I go. But introducing some like story into it, and so trying to like motivate why I'm building the example, instead of just being like, here's a thing, trying to come up with like, what's a reason that you actually want to use this thing. And so introducing like um yeah, a little bit of a story as to why you might want to reach for this solution. And so I try to weigh up those two things. There's like some examples I just need to put together because like a new feature is dropped, or we want to highlight something that people are getting very stuck on and we're getting a lot of support tickets or whatever. Um, and so weighing up the like uh, the thing, the amount of people that will get something from this and what the level of what they will get out of it, and can I like make this an interesting, fun video? Do I have a fun idea that kind of engages people early on and gets them to buy in on actually wanting to watch the video rather than just wanting to learn the topic? Because I think something that is really hard from the perspective of a content creator is that we, especially like a technical content creator who's not just creating entertaining videos, but we need to create videos that have like educational purpose. They have, people need to learn some tech concept from the content that we are creating. I think
Mhm.
something that's difficult is that we have experience with those things, or we've researched a bunch about those things. So I'll give an example of like database indexing. So in a database, you store a bunch of data. Once you have a lot of data, it takes a long time for Postgres or whatever your database of choice is to be able to search through all of that data and find a particular record. And so indexing is a way that you can speed that up. Um, I know what indexing is. And so if I was to put together a video, I like the kind of the default way that I would do that is like how to index tables in Postgres. But someone else doesn't have the context of why they might even need to reach for that solution. And so by presenting the video as just like, here is how to do this thing in this technology, it kind of assumes that the viewer is going to know that they have that problem
Yes.
and that that's the solution they should be searching for to solve that problem. And so there's a really challenging aspect of being able to present the problem without the solution, or being able to present the benefit that they would get. So with the indexing example, I made a video that was like, increase your database queries by 24,000% or something. And so it's like introducing this large like promise of, here is the benefit that you're going to get from watching this video, rather than relying on someone understanding that they have a problem with performance and they need to reach for this particular thing. It's like letting the solution be the exciting thing that drives them to watching the video,
Yep.
and then do the bait and switch and actually teach them something.
Once you got them, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah, I
feel like
think
that just went on a whole rant that didn't really answer your question.
no, but
Uh,
it's a really good point you have that the art of teaching is to actually realizing that someone who has to learn something doesn't know all the things you know. And you often see this problem with like super, super senior, very, very intelligent software engineers that don't really know how to teach because there's so many levels separated from the humble beginnings when you're like, oh, how this is a problem and I can fix it that way. And I think I really obsessed with this, where I try to always break down stuff into like explaining why something could be a problem. And this leads to my videos being a bit longer because I just try to walk someone through the problem space and then say, okay, now we know that's a problem, let's fix it. But yeah, it's very, very tempting to just explain how to do X, like you said. I think the magic of teaching is to find a framing that kind of surfaces that this is a problem and then say, okay, now we've identified this, here's the solution.
yeah. And you're great at that. So just do what
Thank you.
you do, which is incredible. And that's the best way for you to put together the course.
I think one the tricky part of the jobs I have now and I had before is there was a lot of freedom, which it's the dream to have the freedom of teaching whatever you want, but it's the double-edged sword that right now, literally right now, I'm like, I've got a few tabs open. I want to do a course on animations for the web, CSS keyframes, transitions, JavaScript APIs, animation libraries like GSAP or Motion, and I'm like, this is amazing. And then I want to do React and Inertia, and then I want to do also SHADC and UI because there's really cool stuff with the registry and the new CLI that works for Laravel and all that stuff. And I'm like, which one? I need to pick one. And then instead of just going down with one, I have like these 3 parallel streams where I have Notion documents and I try to find storylines. And this is the major flow of like being free form, teach whatever you want is like, which one?
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Laracast itself is not a software where there's a new release and you need to like say, hey, what's new in this version? I'm literally teaching anything I know about front end design, UI, dev, business, whatever, like working in the web industry. So it's very broad, which is exciting, but it's also sometimes difficult to pick a lane, and I think I just gotta pick one and build an example, and I'm like, okay, I'm teaching this now, and I'm just going down, and then the other ones come later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when I first started at Supabase, it was just this blank canvas. Like there was no DevRel team. It was just like there wasn't any YouTube channel. Like there were the YouTube channel was there, but it was kind of just doing random live streams. And yes, the blank canvas of just anything
Do
can
the
cover
thing, come on.
anything. And it was before we had like a really like massive community of people that were like asking for specific examples, or we had created some videos and people had requested specific things as
Yep.
like follow-on videos. So just like this massive blank canvas of like, here's a product that does a bunch of stuff and I can go in absolutely any direction was initially exciting, or not even initially exciting. It was overwhelming as heck. So I'm
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a
Well, there's
double-edged sword.
I think I'm gonna get better and better at it. But there's studies that shows that one of the number one reasons for burnout is lack of, like, when you don't know what you're supposed to work on. And I know what I'm supposed to work on, but like there's that thing where if you don't have like, hey, we need this is the topic, go record that stuff. Uh, it's a little bit more boring, but you're like, okay, I've got something. I'm taking my shovel and dig and get to work. Versus like, oh, I have to create this whole stream of work by myself,
Yeah.
which, like, I don't know if you saw my tweet about surfing and mental health and exercise. Literally, if I go for a surf, which I did yesterday morning, I come home, hit record, do crazy cool video, ship it, and I'm like, I'm so good at this. I'm the perfect person for this job. I love it. I've got freedom to organize my weeks like I want. It's amazing. Take the same day, but I don't go to surf and I go straight here at 7 a.m. trying to find an idea to build before my workday starts. And then I end up spinning my wheels and being like, computers, what the hell? What am I doing? It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think in a creative field like content creation slash inspiring people to learn through examples, if I don't have my dose of sunshine and exercise and air, I feel like I'm going downhill. And as soon as I go do this, I'm straight back up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the secret.
Exercise is hugely, hugely important and something that I have become better at. But yeah, launch weeks, which
Yeah.
what a perfect segue. But launch weeks are a crazy time at Supabase where we launch a new feature every week. And this is why we've taken a couple of weeks off from the podcast, is because it is usually a insanely hectic time, especially in the team building the videos and like showing off the features. But one thing that used to always slip was exercise. I would be too busy, and so I would just be like, well, I just have to not exercise today. I'm gonna focus on this thing. I'll just get this one little part done, or I'll finish off this edit or whatever. And it just every single time leads to burnout and leads to being exhausted at the end and like
And poor output, your work gets worse. You're like,
yeah.
oh, I skip exercise and I reclaim 45 minutes to work more productively. And you're like, nah, this is not how it works.
Yeah.
You'll
You
spend the
make
whole
more
day thinking, oh,
mistakes,
yeah.
you miss things, like yeah, the quality just drops right down. And yeah, but I've last couple of launch weeks I've been really intentional about like it doesn't matter how on fire everything is, I've got to like just at lunchtime I go have food, like have some lunch and then go and exercise. And yeah, has made a huge difference to even like, you know, we all already know this, but every time it's like you take a break and you go and exercise and you focus on something else, and then all of a sudden you have this idea and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I can solve the problem like this, or
Every time.
every time.
Yeah, I think I retweeted my own tweet and I said my ability to forget that this is the
Yeah.
cornerstone of my health and self-esteem and everything. It
Yeah.
must be studied because every single week, and I've done it this week again.
Yeah.
Started Monday, big week, start early. And I didn't do much on Monday. And then Tuesday, I went surfing and I just did a really cool video.
Yeah. And how many times have we said it on this podcast, telling other people, giving other people advice to do this thing, and then somehow just
Yeah.
forget it ourselves
Yep.
every time.
So
But
I know
launch
you,
week.
yeah, I know you want to talk about launch week, but since we've talked about this whole content stuff, maybe we can do the other episodes about launch week and continue
It's not
talking.
about launch week. We've got another episode about something else.
We
Simon,
can do
I got
two.
this.
All
We
right.
got launch week in this one, and then we're going to talk about something, a secret something. So
Ooh.
launch week was this week, or was last week, and it was a crazy busy time. A quick summary of what we launched. So usually we have like 5 main launches where we launch something on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But then usually we like launch something big the weekend before, and then like 10 things the weekend after, and it's just like it's insane the amount of stuff that we actually launch. But the big headline features, firstly, interesting you were talking about the ShadCN registry
Uh-huh.
stuff. We
Oh
released
yeah,
a
yes.
Supabase UI library that's built on top of ShadCN, um, which just is like just makes so much more sense than anything else that I have built previously, with especially around auth. So if you've been following the history of Supabase or the history of these Navfire episodes, I built a library a long time ago to try to configure Supabase to use cookies instead of local storage, so that it enables SSR and like Next.js things, anything that has like a server um, that renders the first version of your page.
So you don't
Uh,
have to wait for the client to load to go check if someone's authenticated and then flip the UI to, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So the server knows if the user is authenticated, who the user is, and what they should have access to. And so the server can make the decision as to what the initial render of the page looks like, instead
Yep.
of, as Simon is very clearly articulating, instead of waiting for the client to load and just loading, showing a loading spinner, and then triggering a request to go and get the data that they should see. It's the ability for the server to know what's going on because you're storing all of that data in cookies rather than local storage, which only exists in the browser. Anyway, long time ago, built a library, made a whole bunch of mistakes, learnt lots of things, built a second library, made other mistakes, and then built a template for specifically for Next.js that basically does all of the authentication stuff and gives you all of those auth pages. But this new iteration just like completely supersedes that, because it doesn't need to start with a template. You can just use the ShadCN component registry to just generate all of the pages that you need for auth. And so it does all of the things it does, like in Next.js, it does middleware, it does all of the different like token exchange routes, like the API routes that you need. Um,
Huh.
yeah, it just does all of it. It's amazing. And it's just running one shadcn command and then just linking it to your Supabase project with an environment variables,
So
like
you're
a
saying
.env
that
file.
I haven't looked into this at this point. I keep hearing about it, and I'm definitely I thought that was literally just for UI components like a button or a drop down. Are you saying that you can have basically full stack or server, like you can do stuff like checking cookies and middleware stuff that lives on the registry, and then you pull that in your project?
Yeah. And so
Wow.
it does like installing the libraries, so it installs the right packages for Supabase. It creates all of the what's the new word for API routes? Man, I should know this. Route handlers. It creates route handlers for all of the auth stuff. It creates middleware, and any of those that clash, it will ask you what you want to do. But yeah, it just builds out all of the bits that you need, so then you can just point the user to like /auth/login, and they just get this beautifully rendered form that's also using all of the other ShadCN components. And
Huh.
it like has all the validation, all of the accessibility, all of the like forgot password flow, all these things you just get by running this one command,
And
which is
it's
just
still,
amazing.
pardon the ignorance, but it still works like ShadCN components where instead of pulling some dependencies, it literally copies and creates files in your. So there's that these files living somewhere in the registry, and when you run npx ShadCN add auth Supabase whatever, it's just going to create files locally, and now you own these, and you don't have any dependencies pulling from npm, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not all abstracted away in some library that's doing some magic stuff.
Yeah.
It's still using like the Supabase
Yeah, but it's
SSR
a
package.
fancy copy and paste, like it's an automated copy and paste through a CLI command.
Yeah. And you would be
Nice.
surprised how many people fail to copy and paste things when you give them 4 steps,
Yeah,
how they
go
manage
and
to
add
skip
this
number
to your
three.
yeah. Oh, if you miss that step, nothing's gonna work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
And
that's
so
general. Yeah, that's so cool, man.
yeah, and so because Superbase is the is a collection of kind of like a high level uh like features or products or whatever. So there's hosted Supabase databases, and then there's Auth, real time file storage, and a few others. If you focus on those, Auth takes quite a lot of like wiring up a UI to use that correctly. So like Supabase handles the backend, but you still, from a user perspective on the UI, you need to handle a lot of use cases of like forgot password or creating an account, signing in,
Yep,
uh,
like a
validation on
lot.
the form, how they go through that flow, checking that they're actually authenticated on the pages that you want to be protected. There are so many different things that you need to consider from a UI perspective.
Yeah.
And real time is the same. Like you need to subscribe to things, you need to invalidate that stuff. Like you need to load it initially, and then you need to be able to revalidate it. And for file storage, you need to do things like validate that they're only uploading one file, or they're only uploading a particular type of file or a particular size. Like you don't want them to just eat up all of your quota on Supabase by uploading like a 50 terabyte file. You want to have some validation there. Um, and so, yeah, those three kind of features of Supabase all have their own dedicated ChadCN components, which do all of those things for you. So for the uploaded file one, for example, you get this really nice drop zone component, and you can just drop things on there, and you can tweak whether there are particular files that you want or how many files you want them to be able to upload. And it just all looks nice. Like you drop something onto the drop zone you're not meant to, and it turns red, and it gives you a nice error message. Just all these things that you don't need to think
Ah,
about.
yeah, yeah. The rainy path, rainy day, not just the happy everything works, but it handles the edge case where you've got something wrong.
Yeah,
That's so
super
cool.
cool. It like when I so the way we did this launch week is that we recorded a bunch of video. I think we talked about this last podcast, but we recorded videos when we're in Spain. So
Yeah, you
we
went all out with the green neon tubes. You were
yeah
talking about it, and afterwards I've seen the videos and I was like, oh yeah, he told me about this.
yeah
The
super
lightsaber
cool.
fights and the jazz hands.
Yeah, and I actually filmed a vlog like behind the scenes
Yeah.
video
Is it out
while I
yet?
was there. Sorry,
Is it out yet?
not yet. So that
Ah,
one comes out probably in a week, maybe a couple of weeks, because
okay.
there's a little bit more that I need to do to pull it all together and pull together a little bit of story in there. But yeah, that it's actually looking really cool, and it talks about like the different cameras we used and the lights and the tubes and all of that stuff. It's really cool. Very proud of that video. Um, but when I was recording, so we recorded all these videos when we were in Spain,
Uh-huh.
and then that was like 2 weeks before launch week. And so then when we got back from Spain, it was like putting together all of the other animations and things that need to go into the video. But all through that time, I hadn't really appreciated how amazing this UI library is because I hadn't actually used it. So we like when we wrote these scripts when we were in Spain and basically left spaces to insert animations once we knew what we were actually doing and how to
Yeah,
use
yeah.
it because the feature hadn't really been built yet. We were kind of just saying what we thought was going to happen when the feature launched. And so when I actually got to use it and like create the animations for like how to actually put this in your project, it just like blew my mind how much this thing like how convenient it makes it to add each of these features. It's awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the surprisingly like underrated feature that I didn't expect to be as cool as it was. Like when we were recording the videos, I was like, yeah, whatever. We've just created a couple of like components, like UI components that you can copy and paste into your application. That's okay, I guess. But then when I actually used it, I was like,
As a
this,
consumer, yeah, you're like,
yeah,
ah,
this is amazing.
yeah.
And the views on that video went. Phew. It was the most successful video we've ever put out on the Supabase YouTube channel. It got to
CN has superseded Tailwind and React and in the buzzword, like anything you mentioned ChatCN on Twitter or on YouTube video.
yeah,
I did now it's a year and a half ago, I think. Maybe 2 years ago, I did a on my own YouTube channel, I did a theming in ChatCN UI because you know how it generates CSS variables, and I showed how to use the theming strategy I teach in Pro Tailwind to make it work with ChatCN. And this is by far like 5 or 6 times more than the next video in terms of views. It's still now it gets viewed
wild.
all the time because it has
Yeah,
the word ChatCN in it.
yeah. So we had a goal last quarter to hit 30K on one of our videos in a quarter. and we actually did it. Tyler did it with a couple of videos from last quarter, smashed it. But that video, that UI video, got 30K views in like just over 24 hours. It just like skyrocketed. It was wild. Um, yeah, very cool. And yeah, I was not expecting it to be that exciting. Like even when I used it, I was like, this thing's cool. But yeah, people are very, very excited about it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Uh,
What else did you guys launch?
yeah. Got to stay on track. I know I said this would be a quick episode and then I'd force you to record another quick episode. This is not becoming a quick episode.
All right.
Tuesday was edge functions, and so the ability to there was a bunch of stuff in this, like upgrading to Dino 2.1 and giving you a bunch of node support. But then the one that's really cool to me is you can now edit and create and write edge functions from the dashboard. So previously you would need to create like a local instance of Supabase, write your Dino edge functions, and then deploy them. And then there was no way to kind of view them in the Supabase dashboard and tweak
Yep.
them or do anything in your like live production instance. Whereas now you can just tweak things in production straight from the dashboard. It's great. That's what I
Nice.
love to do, especially for examples. Like it makes my job easier because I don't need to go through, like we were talking about before, when you just have to add all of this context to a lesson so that someone is able to accomplish something or understand what
Yeah.
they're doing. That's a great example of that, where you would need to run Supabase locally. So you'd need to know about the Supabase
And you
CLI and
can't
then
skip these steps, otherwise the person can't do them. So you have to
exactly.
walk them through all of
The
that. Yeah.
Supabase CLI requires Docker. And so you need to have Docker installed and
Let's
know
talk
what that
about that.
is.
What is Docker?
Yeah, exactly. And so there are like all these bits to just the main point that's meant to be so easy is like you deploy an edge function and it's so easy and it can just basically run as like a server somewhere and do some stuff. But to get there, you have to jump through all these hoops. So now you
Yeah.
can just click new edge function and
And you
write
have
your
a
edge function.
UI,
Yeah,
specific UI in Supabase to just write the
yeah,
code there. Yep.
yeah. It's awesome. Next one was broadcast from database. So there were we have real-time subscriptions. This is a new, more efficient way to be able to subscribe to changes in the database. So when something in your database changes, a new row is added or whatever, your front end can update dynamically to show that new record. So things like real-time chat applications and stuff would benefit from this. Next one was declarative schemas, which is awesome. Very similar to uh, like the way that Prisma does migrations and kind of abstracts that away from you. So you just have a file where you change the database into whatever shape you want, and then behind the scenes, Prisma will like write those database
Yep.
migrations and keep a track of everything in a more scalable, sensible way, but giving you the convenience of just being able to describe the shape that you want the database to eventually be in.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the concept because Key Static, the Git-based CMS that we were like that ThinkMill is building, and I was doing lots of videos for, is the same. You schema-driven development where you define the shape of your structures and then it generates all. And ThinkMill also has Keystone.js, which is a much bigger project that is a Node.js full stack framework, and it will, from a schema, it will generate a Prisma file. So the Prisma file that we do manually, Keystone abstracted, and that schema generates that, and then also a GraphQL spec. So yeah, it's pretty cool how you specify with type safety fields and like properties, and then it just generates all that. So
Very cool.
so
Yeah,
is the Supabase one also code driven, or it's like a UI drag and drop WYSIWYG sort of,
it's
not WYSIWYG, but like, yeah,
code
GUI, I
driven.
guess.
So
Yeah.
it's a file that lives like in your code base that you check into Git or whatever,
Yes.
and you describe in Postgres, like in SQL, you describe like basically a create table statement and any like functions and things that you need, and so you can have these different schema files for particular like tables in your database. So you have like a users table. This
Yeah.
is the shape of your users, and then this is some database function that you want to trigger anytime a new user is added or something like that. You
Yeah.
can keep a track of all of that in this one schema file, in this one declarative schema file, and then
Nice.
automatically it will create migrations behind the scenes. So anytime you change one of those columns, so you say, well, actually, we want to, rather than store address, we want to break that down into, like street name, street number,
Yes.
state, whatever. Then you can just change those fields. Obviously, you need to also make sure your data is consistent with these changes that you're making. But you can make all the changes to the schema that you would like, and then it will automatically generate like a remove column address, delete all data from the address column, and it will like create these new columns. So it'll write all of the proper moving from this state to this
Migration.
state
Yeah.
kind of migration file behind the scenes for you.
Yeah. Very cool.
That one's super cool. And then Friday, number 5, is the thing that I was pretty sure was going to be the most exciting, most popular thing, which did actually get it was beaten by the UI library, surprisingly, but the official Supabase MCP server. So the ability to connect your AI agent, either your IDE or your chat interface, chat prompt, or whatever.
Yeah.
So using something like Cursor or Windsurf as an example, you can connect your agent to your Supabase project, and so then it knows the exact shape of your Supabase of your Postgres database. It knows everything about your Supabase project, and you can give it either read or read and write access. So it can also create new tables for you. It can populate data. Eventually, we're going to roll out some more Supabase specific features. So a lot of what we rolled out initially was like database Postgres stuff. So it understands the shape of your database. But we will be rolling out the ability to like create auth. Well, I guess you can create authorization rules with RLS, but like uploading files directly to file storage or turning on real-time subscriptions for particular tables, all of those additional features that Supabase gives you around a Postgres database will be enabling with the Supabase MCP server. So yeah, that was also very exciting, very cool thing that is definitely a hype thing at the moment that people
Mm.
want to use.
I was gonna say MCP is as buzzword as you can. I mean, it's not very old, but like I feel 2 months ago, some people started talking about MCPs, and I was like, oh, never heard of this. And now, literally, all my Twitter feed is about, oh, we've added MC. Even Kenzie Dot is adding SCP to the Epic stack, and like there's MCPs for everything. I still don't really know what it is, but I kind of feel like it's something that you can tell your agentic whatever cursor, or like you can tell your AI, hey, here's how you interface with my other thing here, and you have access to this, and then it gives access to everything, and then you just let it take over your whole life beyond just access to documentation or VS Code or whatever. You can give it access to all aspects of your life. Like I can turn on my neon sign through an MCP. What does MCP? I guess P is for protocol.
Maybe
Model
model context provider,
provide.
maybe. But yeah, basically, like it's just a fancy way of exposing an API for like with the intended audience being AI agents, and
Yeah.
so you are creating the ability, like you're exposing some functionality specifically to AI, and so the cool
Zapier
thing,
for AI.
yeah, and so it's like I don't know. I like so many MCP servers have come out, and I just like I don't see the point in a lot of them. Like I don't know. Anytime I go to use one, I'm like, oh, cool, I can do this, and then I'm like, but what would I actually use that for? But the Supabase one, it makes sense because you have like a backend that you want to if you're building a full stack application, then if you're within your code editor or whatever, then the code editor understands the front end because the code base is right there and the files are right there.
Yeah.
But giving it access to your like hosted backend that lives somewhere else and allowing it to make changes to that in the same way that it can make changes to your local front end code.
Yeah. So you make the surface area of the context that it gets greater.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not just
Let's
giving it.
pretend this database hosted there is in the VS Code that you're looking at, basically.
Yeah. And then hack and slash my production database to
Here's the
pieces in
API.
whatever way you
Yeah.
want. Free reign. Here's read and write access. Drop all tables. See if
Well,
I
yeah.
care.
I think earlier this week I saw someone mentioning like the security aspects of MCPs, or you basically need to grant access to everything and then sort of like kind of like npm dependencies, like the packages pull other packages that pull other packages, and you have that chain of MCP. Oh, cool! I can also access this because this one let me access that one. And I read someone say, just think twice about the fact that you have to agree to the terms and conditions that now AI can do everything with all your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why we are being very careful about like permissions with this. That's why I mentioned like you can just give it read access, and so then it can
Yeah, read
like
is good. Yeah.
yeah access the shape of your tables or the data in your tables or whatever. But um, yeah,
Again,
think carefully before just
completely.
giving unrestricted write access to
Yeah.
AI.
Again, pardon the ignorance. I've been in a little cave doing my React course for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I feel like all this new stuff popped up. Uh, all the AI stuff now have this deep search mode, and I feel that maybe behind the scenes it's using MCPs to have access to a lot more services, because it used to say, "Oh, sorry, as an AI agent, I'm not able to read the web," and now you press deep search and it goes and it reads all these articles and pulls off. And then, would you like me to turn this into a PDF so you can share it with your client? Like, whoa,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
is this how it's implemented under the hood? Maybe not.
yeah. Would you like me to go and buy ammunition from this store and go and hunt your enemies? We are creating Skynet. We're
Yeah,
doing it right now. MCP is the first step.
yeah.
But yes, the Supabase MCP server is awesome. You should go and use it. But the real star of the show, if you watched any of the videos or looked at any of the comments or were on Twitter at all, was my
Your hands.
hands
Yes,
being
I know.
super animated.
See, I had no hesitation. I knew exactly where you were going.
So, yeah, it turns out I move my hands a lot. I think I gesticulate a lot when I talk. In when I do videos and also when I'm like, talking in person.
Yeah,
But I think the zoomed out shot, the full body shot that we had of these videos that we filmed in Spain on this in this like fancy set, I think revealed just how much I move my hands. Also,
yeah.
like I think I felt
Everything
like
is black. Everything was black. There's
yeah,
three vertical green neons, and then your hands that just.
yeah, yeah. There were a lot of things that really exaggerated
Yeah,
the noticeability of my hands moving a lot. And
but
I
I
think
think.
because the cameras were so far away, like they were way further away than I've ever had a
Yeah,
camera that I'm talking to. I think I felt like I needed to be like more
yeah,
exaggerated
big
and
gesture that the
yeah,
people at the
exactly.
back can see. Yeah.
And I was thinking like there's nothing else on the screen, like it's just me and then some
I'll be
animations
tiny
and
in the corner, like,
yeah,
hello.
that's right. I've got yeah, make myself known.
Yeah,
But it turned out it may have been a little too much.
it was a
Uh,
big telescopic lens instead.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, uh, I'm considering doing like a because some people found it funny. Some people were very not nice about it, but I leaned right into it and kind of kept making jokes throughout the week on
Yeah,
Twitter about like making a video like zoomed into my hands to really trigger people.
yeah. So
Uh,
wonderful.
but I
I
want to
think
do
that's
like a I want
sorry,
to I want to do like a what do they call like a meditation video that's like
ASMR.
yeah, an ASMR video that's like slowed right down and it tracks my hands. It's like zoomed in on my hands, and as I move them up, the camera goes up and it tracks them perfectly in like super slow mo, where you can like see the motion blur of my hands as I'm talking,
Do
and
it.
then just put some like really calming music underneath it.
Yeah, some sleep rain, little rain music.
Yeah. So you're asking how I come up with the perfect content? It is by seeing how far I can push people that
Do it.
seems to be triggered by my hand movements.
Do you know Chris Pennington, who does a lot of videos on Astro? His YouTube channel is Code in Public, and he's got this super soothing voice. Like he's got a really good. I think it's the Electro Voice RE20, his mic, and he's got really good microphone technique. And I think he was sound engineer or something to do with like audio capturing. So his audio is mint, and his voice is so good. And he kept saying, "Oh, everyone in the comments says it's like ASMR for programmers." So he did one of these funny videos where he puts like the sleep meditation music, and he starts like walking you through a meditation cycle. You
Awesome.
should do that with your hands.
I should. Absolutely.
I'll share that link in the show notes, guys. And go.
But yes, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about with launch week. we should wrap up so I can force you to do another episode.
Yes.
But quickly,
That
do you have a quick sick pick for me, Simon? You're gonna
I have
have
a
to have two.
Yes, I have a quick sneak peek. It goes with the topic of preparing lessons and teaching. I am subscribed to Josh Como's whimsical animation upcoming course. It's coming next year or like in September, I think. And Josh sent an email, like he's building the mailing lists, and I subscribed, and he sent an email about particle effects with CSS keyframe animations. And to me, that was a masterpiece in sending an email that hypes you up for something. It's not a sales pitch. It's like literally, hey, here's one module I'm working on for the course. And he showed how you can use CSS variables inside keyframe animations. So it's showing, hey, you can have one little point that goes left to right by 16 pixels, but you can replace the 16 pixels with a CSS variable, and then you do multiple of these same little elements, and you add you in an inline style, you change the CSS variable value, and then you can make basically dynamic animations with CSS keyframes, which is super performant and doesn't block the main thread. And I was in preparation of keyframe animation course, like I was telling you earlier, and I saw this and I never thought of using variables inside a keyframe. And I was like, this is amazing. And in Josh's style, like the email is really well written in a friendly, engaging tone of voice. And there's beautiful example GIF looping. And I was like, this is the perfect email. Like, shout out to Josh. I'm looking forward to this course. He's a master of making things look amazing and feel amazing and get you really interested in it. So
Yeah,
my tick pick is Josh Como.
an amazing sick pick. He was, yeah, has always been hugely inspirational in how to present a course well, and even just like he has his own LMS that he built for one of the courses that I did, and it's just so well thought out. Like anything you need to do, there's like an embedded editor, or there's like a little embedded browser thing or whatever. Like you don't need to like leave the context of what you're doing to learn and step through the lesson. And I think he was really early in creating that kind of like um uh yeah, like beautifully animated, engaging learning platform.
Yeah, check his website. He's got like little sound effects on every buttons, and then this he also makes in Blender 3D like clay Play-Doh style elements, and everything is so mint and beautiful to a point where you're like, I didn't know you could do this with
Mm,
the web platform. It's
totally.
mostly CSS, tiny bit of JavaScript, and it feels like this WebGL 3D crazy canvas stuff. He's fantastic teacher and programmer, of course.
Yeah,
I'm
hugely
pointing at my
recommend.
second screen that I'm looking at, but yeah, it's very meta.
Yeah, my sick
Your
pick.
sneak peek, yes.
My sick pick is I should have brought it in here. Yeah, no, I don't have it in here. It's in it's in my other studio. Uh
My
it's
annex,
a
my Tuesday shed.
that's right. It's a tube light, which is the tube. I think it's the much cheaper version of the tube lights that we used in Spain. But yeah, there's a whole story. I think I mentioned it last podcast, but basically we decided to add the MCP video very late in after we had left Spain, and so I ended up trying to like recreate the set as much as
To
possible.
rebuy the $5,000 neon tubes
Yeah,
to do a
I
retake.
bought two much cheaper tubes, um, and hung up a black sheet and tried to make
Recreate.
it as close as possible so that we could then like um rotoscope the background out of me here and put me in the
Yeah.
Spain video, which worked out really well. It's like, go and watch the MCP video. It looks like I'm actually there. But the tube light that I bought for here, which I didn't end up using for that video anyway, but I bought it to try and recreate it,
Yeah.
but have been using it in other videos, and it just looks so sick, and was like it's fairly expensive, but it's not like unaccessibly expensive, but Newer, so Neewer is the
Yeah.
brand. They make it's basically like the Ryobi of lights and
Yes.
and
And
microphone gear.
stands and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's like the prosumer like uh top end of
Yeah.
the
It's a
normal
very
consumer
good
market.
value for quality price point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
And so yeah, bought two of these tube lights. Um,
TL60s?
I
No.
think they're the TL60s, yeah. And they are so bright and so like the light just looks so nice. I put them
Uh,
in the corners of the room and like turned them around so they were like shooting onto the corner of like two white walls, and it just like washed the whole wall in this color. Like it just they look
yeah.
awesome. Um
Do you want a pro tip piggybacking on your sick pick?
yes.
If you want to be able to have the most impactful colors with RGB lights, you paint your walls in neutral gray, which is 18% gray.
Right.
Because if you go white, it's going to be mostly washed out white with the tint of the color. If
Right.
it's black, it's gonna almost stay completely black. But there's a color called neutral gray, which is 18% gray, and it transforms any light projected to the most vibrant, saturated color. So if you paint a feature wall with the 18% gray, I almost did this to that wall. Actually, the drywall, the whatever plaster sheets, they're a bit lighter. It's 80% gray feels like very white, but it feels almost black. But then when you project light on it, it completely allows the whole saturation to come through. So if you want to have these lights even more vibrant, try to paint the color. Uh, it's similar to that color if you're looking. So it's like
Oh
a
yeah.
halfway gray.
Yeah. No,
It's
I have
literally
a
yeah.
because this is what you use to set the white balance on cameras as well. I have a little
Oh
like a
yeah,
gray
yeah. I didn't
card.
even think of that yet.
Yeah, that if I'm moving my cameras around to different locations or whatever, if the colors are quite different, then I put a gray card like where my head will be and set the white balance of the camera to that.
Do you know how I do it? I
Oh,
press auto white balance in the camera and I'm
yeah.
like, whatever.
Done.
If I look completely green, but like my Sony Alpha 6100 seems to always like I feel like I look pretty white balance here, and I've got orange colors in the backlight and like daylight white here, so it should not know what to do, but it seems to know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so paint your wall and you'll have even more bang for your buck from your newer TL60s.
This is actually a fantastic idea. I was thinking about in the other room, which I've started kind of using as like my talking head set, and then I like record in here for when I'm doing the code examples. But it does actually have white walls. Uh and I was thinking of doing something more interesting, like
Yeah.
either doing feature walls and having different colors on the walls so that I can shoot against different colors, or having maybe like incorporating like a whiteboard or some kind of interesting thing into one of the walls that would give visual interest. This sounds perfect. How come every episode that I have with you, Simon, you convince me to spend more money and take on more projects for silly things
Hey,
that I should not be buying?
I'll do a very quick demo for those who's watching. I also have little tube neon lights that I forgot to sick pick. They're a bit cheaper and not as powerful, but see how there's a white band and then gray? I'll take one of these tube and you'll see the difference.
Simon is grabbing a tube light.
So it's set to 10% HSL orange.
That's how you're getting all that beautiful warm tone behind you.
Yes,
So
and
nice.
change too. But I haven't sick picked this. We're not talking about this.
Oh, we're not talking about it. No, no, no.
Anyway,
Woo!
let me pick a pretty strong
Is that
whatever. That's
still is that the newer one? Is that just the shorter newer one?
it's
Yeah,
my
it
sick
is.
pick for next episode, so I'm not telling you.
Okay, all right. We'll stick this next
Anyway,
episode.
I've chosen a nice teal. Should I go super base green? Oh, okay, that's a blue. Look at the difference. If I go,
Yeah, wow. That's wild. Yeah,
I don't know.
amazing. Like I had floodlights previously and they're just so much more directional. Like the floodlight you see this really hot spot and it's really hard to get like a nice wash. But yeah, these uh tube lights, that's amazing. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
see the if you get something that's kind of darker gray, the color comes a lot stronger.
That's so surprising. That is a sick pick combined with a wonderful little nugget of content creator knowledge right there. Simon is just
All
just
right, don't steal this. I'm gonna write a little blog post on my Better Dev screencast about the maximizing color output.
you absolutely should. That is super interesting. And like yeah, that stuff just doesn't make sense like mentally you wouldn't think that casting like you would think having casting a light on as light a wall as possible would give you the best color because it's going to
Yeah,
reflect the color, but you're right, it like washes it out, it makes it really bright and white, and
It
then you get
reflects it, all of it, and black absorbs all of it, and
mm,
the middle is exactly the right amount of sending as much back as possible.
amazing.
I
Thank you
would
so
have
much.
never thought. I think my
Yeah,
t-shirt here might be neutral gray. That's it. It feels almost black. And in your head, when you're thinking, oh, let's paint the wall for optimal image color reflection, you'd think, yeah, very very light gray, if not white, and it's very dark to the point where people say only do a feature wall, otherwise you'll feel depressed because it's a
mm.
really dark box.
That's what
But
I was worried about with doing feature walls. We had feature walls in the house, and like they were from before we bought the house, and it's like one of them is like a nice like light kind of like turquoise greeny blue, which is
yep,
kind of it's nice, but another one is purple and another one is maroon, and both of those are just like so dark and they just suck in the light. Like the whole
it
room just
changes. Yeah,
feels yeah.
yeah.
Good tips,
So that
Simon.
this is the exact reason, because I was gonna do the whole my background is neutral gray so I can play with the colors. And then you probably remember how we went like, no, I'm a outdoors person. I need natural light and windows open, and I didn't want a wall that kind of feels. My previous office in Sydney was covered with moving blankets, which are black and kind of meh. And so I was like, no, I want like open space and stuff and colors. So anyway, I don't want to go too crazy with the RGB lights, but I just added a little bit of tint to.
Yeah, looks so nice.
Yep,
Awesome. All right,
I'll keep
Simon, we
the
failed
topic for
again
the.
at doing a short episode. I said we were going to do a short episode. I was going to force you to do another one. I'm still going to force you to do another one. We've just lost even more time. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Nav Bar podcast, and we will talk to you again soon.
See you next week. Bye.